I like it so much that I find it harder to do now because I'm maybe.
Everyone expected the Hackman family to mourn privately, make a quick statement, and then disappear. What occurred next was unimaginable. It was a controversy as murmurs became claims and a courtroom bombshell changed everything. We revealed Gene Hackman's son's shocking courtroom testimony, Christopher's confession about his father's death, a gas leak possibly killed his father, according to sources. As absurd as it sounds, his statements could be interpreted in different ways. Christopher's claim of what happened to his father appeared credible because Gene's house was ancient and in a picturesque but old region of Santa Fe, noted for its classic architecture and decrepit infrastructure. A gas leak was possible, but Christopher's statements raised more than building safety issues. They sparked a sequence of doubts no one saw coming, including why he brought up a gas leak now. And more significantly, what was his point? Reporters dug in quickly and found details that wrecked the idyllic father-son relationship. A complex web of contradictions, secrets, and decades-old tensions surfaced. Christopher Hackman was always odd. He was born into Hollywood royalty but rarely appeared. Unlike other celebrity kids, he never sought fame or attention. For years, people saw that as humility or modest appreciation for his father's legacy. But now, fresh questions arise. Did his quiet show respect or a hint of something more complicated? Within 4 months of Gene Hackman's death, the courtroom doors opened and the story changed dramatically. Gene's death was no longer the focus. I like to call myself a craftsman. That particular actions are required. Now it was about Christopher's actions in the weeks and months before his father's death. What happened before his father's death seemed odd. Want to know why? Watch as we reveal Gene's death's surprising details. After a while, Christopher was accused of trying to change his father's will. He was accused of lying about Gene's condition. Christopher's admission that he lied was the most shocking. It quickly became more than a family dispute. Nationwide discussions on loyalty, inheritance, and the narrow line between protection and deception ensued. Hackman was more than a performer. He was a legend who left Hollywood on his own terms, preferring privacy above fame. His carefully guarded quiet was drowned out by unending speculation and controversy after death. The prosecution concentrated on Gene Hackman's final 6 months. They claimed Christopher secretly laid the groundwork for estate changes for his father. They showed that he had lied to lawyers, called his father mentally unstable, and privately captured happy moments in photos and messages. Emails, calendar notes, and financial records showed a well-planned operation. But not just the hard evidence mattered. People felt the slow unraveling of a peaceful death. Then the courtroom froze. Christopher's confession changed everything during a crucial trial. He spoke slowly and heavily. He didn't break down immediately away, but something changed inside him. Even by lying, Christopher Hackman protected his father's legacy. His court testimony was emotional. Some courtroom attendees cried while others wavered. Christopher was either a kind son trying to do the right thing or someone who took advantage of his father's decline. That question was unanswerable, making the point more compelling. The media immediately covered the dramatic twist. Christopher was described as a devastated son and a liar in the press. One moment he was perceived as a man burdened with an impossible dilemma. The next he was accused of betrayal. Public opinion was completely divided. When the verdict ultimately came, Christopher faced no criminal charges, but his reputation was forever changed. For every individual who sympathized with him, there was another who felt dissatisfied. What made this case so powerful wasn't only the fact that it involved a great actor or that it played out spectacularly in court. It revealed the deeper, more intimate problems of witnessing a loved one slip away, attempting to preserve their dignity while facing their agonizing decline, and choosing between truth and loyalty. Millions recognized themselves in Christopher's choices while questioning them. This was only the beginning, as what began as a personal family tragedy became a national conversation in courtrooms, homes, and news reports and documentaries. But before all of this, before the scandal and the legal drama, Christopher Hackman had been recognized for one thing: being the son of a Hollywood icon. Christopher never capitalized on his famous surname. He never spoke about his father, appeared on discussion shows discussing Gene's accomplishments, or capitalized on Hollywood nostalgia. He seemed to deliberately avoid attention. People admired him for that. Unlike other celebrity offspring, he didn't desire fame or attention. In later years, his quietness would hurt him. Once humble, his quiet became secretive. Is he being honest or just acting? Find out. Christopher joined Gene's tale in 1960, when Gene Hackman was still battling to get substantial jobs. Christopher grew up in uncertainty then. His father hadn't won honors or become famous. The Hackmans moved between small New York and Los Angeles apartments. They faced financial stress, long work hours, and career-home life balance like many successful families. Christopher was a teenager when Gene's career took off in the 1970s. His father became a great actor, not just any star but one who played complicated characters in bold roles that left audiences stunned. As Gene became increasingly popular, he had less time for his son. Christopher was shy, artistic, and alone, according to his childhood acquaintances. He never brags about his father, never invites friends to movie sets, and seems embarrassed with his last name. No public scandals or fierce battles occurred. Christopher didn't defy his dad. He never wrote a memoir or gave juicy interviews to gossip magazines. He avoided problems. He worked behind the scenes in Hollywood to master photography and editing. He eventually quit the industry. He occasionally attended film events or business gatherings, but always in the background, never seeking recognition. Maintaining privacy generated a striking image. Everyone knows that celebrity sons could have capitalized on their father's fame. Christopher elected not to. A son who didn't get swept up in celebrity life, unlike many Hollywood kids. His reputation garnered him respect until it didn't. In Gene Hackman's last years, father and son rarely appeared together. The actor had retired and was living peacefully in New Mexico, distant from Hollywood. Some thought their relationship had soured due to this distance. Friends of the family said otherwise. Behind the scenes, Christopher was everywhere. He scheduled appointments, doctor visits, and managed his father's needs. Christopher shielded Gene from public attention as his memory faded. However, that scrupulous protection caused controversy. Could Christopher have done it for love? Was he using the situation? That question divided a nation and concerned citizens. Christopher and his father always appeared naturally, never staged. They were photographed walking in the sun or browsing bookcases, speaking volumes without speaking. Their relationship was recognized for its love and dedication. Christopher was the perfect son, reserved, dependable, and untouched by Hollywood stardom. While many celebrity families were scandal-prone, he earned respect for keeping his father's private life quiet. The accusations against him surprised everyone. No one anticipated him to be involved in a controversy, especially his son who had protected his father's reputation. Christopher first seemed normal, but after his father's death he thanked well-wishers and asked for quiet as the family grieved. He then honored an interview, which disclosed everything. A single statement. Christopher said something surprising to a local reporter. Gas leak may have killed his father, he carelessly suggested. A statement that aroused eyebrows immediately. Why raise such a severe issue without proof? Why suggest an environmental factor without official reports? Was this a grieving son's slip of the tongue or more? The public was confused, but officials noticed. Unsettling revelations emerged as investigators probed his father's dying weeks. Medical records were inconsistent. Some financial transactions appeared suspicious. His father was more aware and involved than Christopher had stated, according to emails. The calm, meek son was suddenly scrutinized. Every past comment, photo, and action was carefully reviewed. Was he defending his father's legacy or rewriting the final chapter to suit him? The media, which had hitherto avoided criticizing the son of a renowned legend, suddenly focused on the drama. Experts discussed adult children's caregiving duties for aging parents. Christopher was at the center of psychologists' discussions of the emotional toll of losing a loved one. Now in the spotlight, friends and family began sharing their stories. Christopher was shown as a dedicated son who sought to safeguard his privacy, despite his struggles living in the shadow of a great father. Christopher strictly controlled access to his father, excluding even old acquaintances, according to others. He kept secrets or protected his father's peace. Christopher's affection for his father wasn't in question anymore as the trial loomed. The main question was his honesty. The decades-old image of the perfect, respectful son was suddenly being examined. His decisions were now public. Questions were tough. Why did he label his as mentally unable in court records, but post cheerful images of them weeks earlier? Why is there abrupt, suspicious financial account activity? What prompted an attempt to modify his father's will following significant disorientation? Christopher's court explanations were convoluted. He discussed the stress of managing his father's worsening health, the emotional burden of keeping the family together, and the urge to maintain his father's leadership image. He apologized for omitting details but denied wrongdoing. Not everyone believed him. His story wasn't very heroic or villainous. He adored his father. He suffered seeing him decline. Love and grief don't always prevent or justify poor decisions. Public opinion of Christopher shifted. He was no longer his story got more complex and human. People saw themselves in him struggling with family, expectations, and doing what was right. His downfall was more than scandalous. It was a powerful reminder that truth and perception can differ, and that even the finest intentions can have fatal results. The next trial chapter would break Christopher's carefully built image. Hackman's death was initially mourned like a Hollywood icon. By 95 he had retired to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to live in peace. Family and local officials accepted his death without inquiry. After 95, death is expected. People nodded seriously, saying he lived well and moved on. The calm didn't endure. It was shattered by Christopher's statements 2 days following his father's death. He casually suggested a gas leak contributed to his father's declining health in a small-town newspaper interview. He noticed weird house scents and unusual fatherly behavior in the weeks before his death. Reporter didn't put, people whispered around the household. Some said Hackman was clear in their last chats. Others said he seemed disoriented or puzzled. A former neighbor mentioned a bizarre encounter weeks before his death. 2 family dogs were spotted wandering the streets. Bewildered, the neighbor was skeptical when asked if the gas leak caused this. Most worried were individuals who had been in the house. An unidentified nurse who cared for Hackman in his final days said he was still responsive 3 days before his death. Another carer claimed to have moments of clarity and performed some housework. This contradicted Christopher's public narrative. He depicted a dying, feeble, scarcely aware man. Others saw a man with moments of strength and control despite his condition. Contradictions piled up. Christopher constantly claimed his father's mind was gone. His father hadn't recognized him for months. He told a friend. That message provided crucial court evidence. No one disputed his words at first, but as the investigation continued, things didn't match up. Carefully studied medical findings showed otherwise. More people asked questions as the case gained attention. Journalists sought official medical papers, statements, and anything else to clarify the situation. Then a nurse's personal notes revealed a shocking detail. 2 weeks before Hackman's death, the nurse recorded a conversation that contradicted Christopher's assertions. The report stated that Hackman had been discussing complex themes including personality disorders, trauma, and how his teenage emotional struggles had influenced his life. This was not delusional behavior. Sedative reliance was mentioned for the first time. This revelation made others worry if Christopher was telling the truth or fabricating events to suit him. Christopher's claims weren't the end, making this case more interesting. It escalated into a courtroom drama. So watch for delicious gists. The courtroom drama. Those who knew Gene well would note his meticulous disposition. He prepared his legacy even in retirement. His study reported an after folder, like a new challenge. It was seeking that job and written notes, letters, and precise instructions on how he wanted to be remembered. He wanted solitude for more than simply his reputation. It covered all his personal matters. His funeral wishes included listing his favorite charities and choosing the music. Everyone was surprised by his death, due to this careful planning. He had a clear will filed and amended 15 years before his death. According to sources, it contained large donations to charities, a trust fund for his grandkids and close associates, and a meticulously crafted structure to prevent one individual from controlling his assets. Christopher, his only son, was beneficiary and executor, but his duties were circumscribed to avoid giving him too much influence. People were skeptical when Christopher submitted an amended will signed 50 weeks before Jean's death. Although the new paper was legally notarized and attested, both witnesses were affiliated with a law firm Christopher had hired earlier that year. Will modifications were significant. Nearly $2 million in charitable donations were withdrawn, with a statement saying they were fulfilled. Christopher's fortune had expanded considerably, and new terms granted him more control over his father's books, film rights, and intellectual property. The grandson trust funds remained, but the rules were relaxed, lowering control. But the most troubling change was modest but crucial. The will's clause prevented anyone from changing it if Jean's mental state deteriorated. That provision was gone. It was carefully constructed to prevent tampering if Jean's cognition declined. The missing item raised major legal and ethical issues. Did Jean mean to amend his will so radically, or did someone take advantage of his frailty in his final year? During trial, these questions dominated the debate. Was Christopher only following his father's orders, or was there something more sinister? The truth was buried by legal debates, medical studies, and opposing testimony. The world watched the legal struggle to see if justice would be done, or if another family's reputation would be tarnished due to doubt and controversy. Christopher said the will revisions were what his father wanted. He claimed in court that Jean made these judgments. Christopher said his father had grown skeptical of several philanthropic groups and worried about his life's work after he died. He sought simplicity, but not everyone believed him. Prosecutors saw something more sinister. Christopher took advantage of Jean's vulnerability. They thought. Will wasn't illegal. The document was signed and authorized. On paper, everything looked good. The issue wasn't the documents. Jean made these judgments based on timing, people, and his health. His medical history was difficult. Doctors said he occasionally seemed disoriented or had problems remembering. Others reported he had clear-headed times. A test a few weeks before his death showed Jean's memory wasn't perfect but not completely useless. Uncertainty made the case harder. Prosecution arguments focused on access, contradictions, and motivation. Christopher controlled practically every aspect of his father's life in his final year, they said. He organized Jean's appointments, regulated his visitors, and handled legal matters. Second, they contradicted Christopher's claims regarding his father's health. Jean was declining swiftly, he told physicians. He also discussed book projects and home upgrades with his father. Finally, they offered a compelling explanation for Christopher's actions. He probably wanted more money and authority, especially because he and other family members had long been at odds. Audio recordings were significant evidence. 2 months before Jean died, a family friend filmed a talk with him. The recording showed Jean discussing his will. He told me he wrote it years ago and wouldn't modify it. Christopher interrupted his thought to tell the friend to cease recording. This recording wasn't legally significant, the defense said. Just casual chat. But the prosecutors saw what Jean wanted. More crucially, it showed a discrepancy between Jean's beliefs and reality. Perhaps the most startling witness wasn't outside. One of the lawyers signed the will. She said Jean seemed awake when signing, but she hadn't been told he had Alzheimer's. When questioned if she would have done things differently, if she had known, she hesitated. The courtroom tensed up at that silence. Christopher kept quiet during the trial. He sat with hands folded and an emotional expression. Except to read emails or documents, he rarely looked up. Never interrupted, he never objected. But every time his message or audio was aired in court, tension rose. One of the most intense moments was reading an old Christopher text message. The notification was sent days after the will change. From the communication, the defense claimed he was finishing legal papers. However, prosecutors criticized its wording. The update sounded complicated. It sounded like someone had overcome the last obstacle.
This trial went beyond money. Trust, family, and respecting final desires were discussed. Each portion of the will revealed a sequence of little cautious decisions, not a single act of wrongdoing. The case caused heated debates outside the courtroom. Some said it was a family affair that shouldn't have been public. Others said it was relevant because it showed how the elderly are often coerced to change their wills. News stations interviewed estate planning ethical specialists. Talk programs revealed how often family members manipulated aging relatives' wills. A famous reporter called the case tragic. However, the courtroom felt more intimate. It went beyond legal documentation. It concerned whether Gene's final desires were honored or if someone had changed his legacy. All will words were examined after weeks of meticulous analysis. Every signature, date, and adjustment was examined. The court didn't decide who was a good or bad son. Their purpose was not to assess love or loyalty. Their mission was simple: check if the will was legally updated without pressure. The world had to evaluate whether Christopher had betrayed his father's trust emotionally. The courthouse was packed on the last day of arguments. Santa Fe had never seen anything like it. Sidewalk reporters lined up. True crime podcasters whispered. Gene fans held up old movie posters to see if he might return. A private court dispute became a national spectacle. Courtroom tension was suffocating. All seats were crowded with reporters, lawyers, witnesses, and families. Journalists whispered. Cameras were adjusted. Christopher entered the room, changing everything. He appeared shorter in a dark suit than the media had portrayed. He looked exhausted. His expressions were unreadable because he rarely looked at the crowd and headed directly to his seat. He was no longer the confident interviewer. The world now scrutinized him. Like, subscribe, and click the next video if you liked this one.